My wife didn't defend me when her family treated me like a joke. It felt like cheating in disguise. I knew something felt off the moment she brought it up. A family dinner at my parents' place. She had said it all smiles, her tone light as if it were any other invitation, but I knew better. I knew what those nights really were. Nights designed to remind me, in subtle and not so subtle ways, that I didn't belong. I had been through this before, the polite dismissals, the way they glanced at me when I spoke, as if humoring a guest rather than acknowledging a family member, the way her father would steer conversation toward real success stories, always about people who inherited wealth, never about those who built it from the ground up like I did. But after years of enduring it, I had convinced myself that this time might be different. We'd been married long enough, maybe, just maybe, they had finally accepted me. So I agreed. I put on my best suit, the one she had bought me for occasions like these, and I showed up, ready to be the respectable, patient husband they could no longer ignore. The estate was as intimidating as ever, towering and extravagant, the kind of house that wasn't just big, it was designed to feel unapproachable. The long driveway stretched endlessly, lined with imported trees and statues, leading up to an entrance grand enough to belong to royalty. A valet took my car, and as I stepped onto the stone path leading inside, I could already hear the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses from the dining hall. Nothing had changed. The same massive chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they seemed unreal. The same portraits of her ancestors lined the walls, their stern faces watching over the room, a reminder of the bloodline they were so proud of. The scent of expensive wine and aged wood filled the air, mixing with the distant sounds of a pianist playing something classical, something expensive. I spotted Vanessa instantly, standing with her mother near the grand dining table, deep in conversation. Her father, Richard, was pouring drinks for a group of men in tailored suits, laughing too loudly, as if he had just delivered some profound wisdom. Her siblings were scattered, comfortable in their element, slipping seamlessly between conversations. And then there was me. I adjusted my cuffs, took a deep breath, and walked in. Vanessa turned, her eyes lighting up as she saw me. She walked over smiling, and for a brief moment I thought maybe this time would be different. Hey, I said, keeping my voice calm. Hey, Shay, you made it, she replied, leaning in to kiss my cheek, her perfume familiar and comforting. Come, let's get to our seats. I followed her toward the grand dining table, relieved to finally blend into the setting. But just as I reached for a chair, she stopped, her hand gently touching my arm. Oh, honey, she said, her voice as soft as ever, and saved you a seat at the other table. I blinked. She gestured toward the far corner of the room, where a smaller, mismatched table sat, away from the grand setup. There, a handful of younger cousins and teenagers were seated, their table set with plastic cups and smaller plates, as if it were a designated spot for the unimportant, for the children. I waited for her to correct herself, to laugh and say it was a joke, but she just smiled, as if this was nothing, as if this was normal. I glanced back at the main table. No one had even noticed, or maybe they had, and they just didn't care. Conversations continued, drinks were poured, laughter filled the air. The whole room moved on, completely unbothered by the fact that the man who married into their family was being seated like an afterthought. I looked back at Vanessa, searching for an explanation. Are you serious? I asked, my voice slow. She didn't even flinch. It's just for tonight, she whispered quickly, and there wasn't enough space at the main table, and we didn't want to rearrange everything last minute. I stared at her, my mind racing. After all these years, all the dinners, all the times I swallowed my pride and played the role of the respectful son-in-law, this was where they still placed me. She reached for my arm again. It's not a big deal, Daniel. It's just a seat. No, it wasn't just a seat. It was a message. It was a reminder that no matter how long I had been in this family, no matter how much I had given, no matter how much I had tried, I would never truly be one of them. And for the first time, I felt it. Not just anger, not just frustration, but something deeper, a cold, final understanding. I wasn't wanted here, not really, not as an equal. I let out a slow breath, my fingers tightened at my sides, then relaxed. I didn't argue. I didn't ask her to change her mind. I simply stepped back, took a final look at the grand dining table, the chandeliers, the laughing faces of people who saw me as less, and I made my decision. Without a word, I placed my napkin down, turned on my heel, and walked straight toward the exit. I didn't storm out. I didn't make a scene. I walked with the same composure, the same calm they had always expected from me. Only this time, I wasn't playing along with their script. No one noticed, not at first. Vanessa barely glanced up, assuming, like always, that I'd accept it, that I'd sit where I was told, that I'd stay quiet. But I didn't. I reached the door, pushed it open, and stepped outside into the cold night air. The wind bit against my skin, sharp and unforgiving, but it felt good. It felt real. I took a slow breath, watching the mist of it disappear into the night. And then, for the first time in years, I let go of the weight I had been carrying for so long. I wasn't their outsider anymore. I wasn't their problem. I was done. The night air was sharp, cutting through my suit as I stood outside that towering estate. My breath was steady, but my mind was anything but. My hands clenched at my sides, the weight of years of humiliation pressing down on my chest. But I forced myself to breathe, to think. I wasn't just walking away from a dinner. I was walking away from the role they had assigned me, the quiet, tolerated husband, the outsider. The one who was supposed to nod and smile and accept every subtle jab, every whispered dismissal, every reminder that, no matter how much I loved Vanessa, I would never be good enough for her family. But tonight was different. Tonight, I wasn't going to take it. I could still hear the muffled voices from inside, the clinking of expensive glassware, the laughter of people who had no idea that something had just shifted, that I had just made a decision I couldn't take back. I should have left. I should have walked to my car, driven home, and let them deal with their own arrogance. But something held me there, some deep, burning need for closure, for an answer. So instead of leaving, I turned back around and stepped inside. The warmth of the house hit me instantly, but it felt suffocating now, too bright, too polished, too full of people who saw me as nothing more than Vanessa's poor, self-made husband, the man who had somehow tricked his way into their prestigious family. I walked back toward the dining hall, my steps measured, my face carefully blank. Inside, the dinner was in full swing, plates being passed, wine poured, conversations flowing as if nothing had happened, as if I had never been there to begin with. Vanessa was laughing at something her brother had said, her posture relaxed, at ease, not a single trace of concern on her face. I stopped just before the doorway, watching her. She hadn't even looked for me, hadn't even noticed I had walked out. The realization hit harder than I expected, a sharp, ugly thing twisting in my chest. I had spent years trying to fit into her world, trying to earn a place at her family's table, and yet, when I finally walked away, when I left without a word, she didn't even blink. I took another step forward, past the threshold of the room, and finally, someone noticed.
"Ah, Daniel, there you are,"
Her father, Richard, said, always the first to acknowledge me when it was convenient. He raised his glass in my direction, his tone overly friendly, almost patronizing. "Honest, we were wondering where you disappeared to." I met his gaze evenly, but didn't answer. Vanessa turned then, finally registering my presence. Her eyes widened slightly, but she quickly masked her surprise with a smile. "Oh, you're back," she said smoothly, as if I had just stepped away for a phone call. I ignored her and looked at the table. Every chair was filled, every seat taken, except one, at the corner, at the small, rickety side table where the children sat, their plates already half empty, the conversation light and unimportant. That was where I was supposed to sit. That was where they had placed me. Slowly, I turned back to Vanessa. "She really expected me to sit there?" The table was silent now, all eyes on me. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "Daniel, no." I cut her off, my voice calm but firm. "Cheetah, I want to hear it from you. You really thought it was acceptable to seat me, your husband, at the kids' table?" A few people exchanged awkward glances, but no one spoke. Vanessa let out a small, nervous laugh, as if trying to downplay the moment. "It's just a table, Daniel. It wasn't meant to be a big deal." I let her words hang between us for a moment, then turned to Richard. "And you? What do you think?" Richard raised a brow, clearly unimpressed with the fact that I was calling him out in front of his guests. "And I think you're overreacting, son." "Son? He only ever called me that when he was trying to put me in my place." I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Of course you do." I turned to Vanessa's mother next. "Margaret?" She cleared her throat, adjusting the napkin on her lap. "Daniel, this is a family dinner. There's no need to make a scene." I took a slow breath, then nodded. "Oh, right. A family dinner. And yet, despite being married to your daughter for years, I'm still treated as an afterthought." Vanessa's brother, Eric, leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. "Come on, dude, it's not that deep, it's just seating arrangements." I met his gaze. "Would you have been fine sitting there?" Eric scoffed. "Of course not. Don't tell me it's not a big deal." Silence. I turned back to Vanessa, the last thread of patience unraveling inside me. "Oh, tell me something," I said, my voice quieter now but sharper. "If I had asked them to seat you there instead, would you have accepted it?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, wouldn't," I said before she could speak. "Because you know what it means. You know what it implies." Vanessa's expression wavered, and for the first time that night, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not remorse, but realization. She had never thought about it that way because she had never needed to, because she had never been on the receiving end of it. I let out a slow breath and stepped back. "Enjoy your dinner," I said simply. Then I turned and walked away for the second time that night. I left without waiting for a response, but this time, I knew they were watching. I knew the moment I stepped outside that the mood in that dining room had shifted, that for the first time, they were forced to acknowledge what they had done. And as I walked toward my car, hands steady, mind clear, I knew one more thing: I wasn't going to let this go. Not this time. The night was colder than before, the air carrying a crisp bite as I walked down the grand stone steps leading away from Vanessa's family estate. My breaths were slow, measured, misting in the winter air, but inside I burned. Not with rage, not even with sadness, just a deep, cutting certainty. I was done. I didn't slam the door behind me when I left. I didn't yell. I didn't create a spectacle. I had done exactly what they expected of me for years, kept my composure, stayed polite, never caused a scene. Except this time, I wasn't doing it for their comfort. This time, I was doing it for myself. The estate's long driveway stretched out before me, winding down toward the gates where my car was parked. My footsteps echoed against the pavement, the only sound in the stillness of the night. The further I walked, the lighter I felt, like I had been carrying something heavy on my shoulders for years and had finally decided to set it down. Behind me, the house remained lively, filled with warm lights, laughter, and the clinking of expensive silverware. For all their talk of family, for all their pretense of togetherness, they hadn't even noticed I was gone. Or maybe they had, and they just didn't care. I reached my car, pressing the key fob to unlock it. The interior light flickered on, casting a dim glow against the darkness. I stood there for a moment, one hand resting on the cold metal of the door handle. I could leave, drive away, go home. But something in me resisted. It wasn't just about tonight. It wasn't just about the humiliation of being told, in the most deliberate and degrading way, that I wasn't an equal in my own marriage. It was about the years leading up to this moment, the comments, the dismissals, the way Richard would talk about a real success in front of me, making it clear that my self-made business would never compare to his family's wealth. The way Margaret always looked relieved when I didn't say much during dinners, as if my silence was a favor to her social standing. The way Vanessa, my own wife, laughed along with their casual condescension, never once standing up for me. For years I had convinced myself that love was enough, that marriage meant patience, endurance, understanding, that eventually they would accept me. But tonight I had finally understood the truth. They never would. And worse, Vanessa never wanted them to. I exhaled slowly, the realization settling deeper. She hadn't fought for me. She hadn't argued when they seated me like an outsider at my own family dinner. She hadn't even tried to fix it. Instead, she had smiled at me and expected me to go along with it. That's what hurt the most, not Richard's arrogance, not Margaret's silent judgment, not Eric's dismissiveness. The fact that she was so comfortable with the way they treated me, that she had grown up in that world and saw nothing wrong with it. The front door of the estate opened suddenly, spilling light onto the stone steps. I didn't turn, but I heard the familiar click of heels, quick, hesitant steps. Vanessa. I braced myself as she approached. "Daniel?" she called out. I didn't respond. She hesitated behind me, as if trying to gauge my mood. "Why did you leave?" The question was so absurd I almost laughed. Instead, I turned to face her, keeping my expression unreadable. "Oh, will you really have to ask?" She crossed her arms, shifting on her heels. "It was just a misunderstanding." I let out a slow, humorless breath, shaking my head. "A misunderstanding?" "Yes," she said, stepping closer, her voice softer now. "You're making it bigger than it is." I stared at her, waiting for an apology, for any sign that she understood what she had done. But it didn't come. Instead, she let out a small sigh, her expression frustrated, as if I was the problem. "Oh, look, I didn't think it was that serious. It was just a seating arrangement. You could have sat down and joined us after. No one would have cared." "That's the problem," I interrupted, my voice steady but firm. "No one would have cared." She blinked, caught off guard. I took a step forward. "Oh, you don't get it, do you? You don't see how that was a message, how it wasn't just about a seat. It was about respect, about my place in this family, about the fact that after all these years your parents still see me as beneath them. And you let them." She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. "Oh, you let them," I repeated, my tone sharper now. "You didn't argue. You didn't defend me. You didn't even look surprised when they treated me like I didn't belong. And you expect me to just sit there and take it?" Vanessa's face faltered for the first time. "Daniel," she said quietly, her voice different now, uncertain. "But I wasn't done. No, I spent years trying to earn their respect, trying to prove that I deserve to be part of this family, but tonight I realized something." She swallowed. "What?" I held her gaze. "And I don't need their respect. I don't need their approval. I don't even need to be part of this family." Silence. The words hit her harder than anything I had said before. For the first time, she looked afraid. "Are you saying you don't want to be with me anymore?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I wanted her to feel what it was like to be the one left in uncertainty. "Am saying," I finally said. "Pintude, I won't stay in a marriage where I'm treated like an afterthought, where I have to fight for basic respect, where my own wife doesn't stand up for me." She reached for my hand, but I took a step back. "Daniel, please, just come inside. We can talk about this later." I shook my head. "No, now is when we talk about it. Because for the first time, you're realizing what it feels like to be the one standing outside, not knowing where you belong." She flinched. Good. That was exactly how I had felt for years. I turned away from her and opened my car door. "Where are you going?" she asked, her voice desperate now. I looked back at her one last time. Home. And then, without another word, I got into my car, started the engine and drove away, leaving her standing there alone. The hum of the engine was the only sound in the car as I drove away from the estate, my hands firm on the steering wheel, my mind racing. I had walked away, not just from a dinner, not just from another night of their condescension, but from the entire charade. And yet, the moment I crossed the iron gates and pulled onto the empty road, a strange silence settled in my chest. Was this it? Was this the beginning of the end? For years, I had bent over backward trying to fit into Vanessa's world. I had tolerated their insults, their dismissals, their thinly veiled contempt, all for her. But tonight had been different. It wasn't just them treating me like I didn't belong. It was her, the woman I had married, the woman who was supposed to have my back. And now she was still there, inside that house with them. Would she follow me? Would she fight for me? Or would she stay, exactly where she had always been, comfortable in a world where I was nothing more than an outsider? I tightened my grip on the wheel and exhaled slowly. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. I knew who it was. I knew what they would say. But I wasn't in the mood for excuses, for empty words meant to smooth things over. For years I had played along, pretending it didn't bother me, laughing off their insults to keep the peace. But tonight, something had shifted. Something had broken. The car cut through the quiet streets, the city lights reflecting against the windshield as I made my way home. I pulled into the driveway and killed the engine, staring at the darkened windows of our house. It looked the same as always, warm, inviting, familiar. But something about it felt different now. It didn't feel like home. I stepped out, the night air sharp against my skin, and walked to the front door. Unlocking it felt mechanical, as if I were stepping into someone else's life rather than my own. The house was silent when I entered, the absence of Vanessa heavier than I expected. She wasn't here. She had stayed at the dinner. That realization hit harder than I thought it would. I sighed, running a hand through my hair, and made my way to the living room. I wasn't tired, not really, but my body felt drained. I sat down on the couch, leaning forward, elbows on my knees, staring at the coffee table without really seeing it. Then my phone buzzed again. I finally looked at it. "Vanessa, where are you? Come back inside. You're overreacting." I scoffed. Overreacting. Of course, she still didn't get it. Another buzz. "Margaret, her mother, Daniel, this is childish. This is a family gathering. Act like an adult." Another. "Richard, her father, enough of this nonsense. Get back here before you embarrass yourself further." Embarrass myself? A bitter chuckle escaped my lips. I was the one embarrassed, after they treated me like a second-class citizen in my own marriage. I rubbed a hand over my face, the exhaustion settling deeper in my bones. They weren't panicking because they cared. They were panicking because I had done something unexpected, because for the first time I had refused to play my part. My phone kept vibrating, one message after another, each one filled with the same dismissive tone, the same condescending expectation that I would fall back in line. Eric, her brother. "Dude, what the hell? Just come back. You're making it worse." And Melissa, her sister. "Wanish, you're making Mom upset. This isn't necessary." It was all about them, their discomfort, their embarrassment. Not one message asked how I felt. Not one of them apologized. Not even Vanessa. I exhaled sharply, standing up and pacing the room. My chest felt tight, my mind whirling. I had always known her family looked down on me, but tonight had exposed something worse. Vanessa didn't just tolerate their behavior, she accepted it, she condoned it. She expected me to accept it too, and that was something I could never ignore again. I looked down at my phone, scrolling through the endless flood of messages, then paused. My eyes landed on the picture I had taken earlier of the tiny table in the corner where they had expected me to sit. The image spoke volumes. It was proof. Without thinking twice, I clicked on the family group chat and sent it, along with a single caption, "Interesting choice of seating for your son-in-law. Hope the adults are enjoying their meal." And then I turned off my phone and waited. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, I simply stood there, staring at the blank screen, feeling the weight of what I had just done. I had never pushed back before. I had always let them have their way, let them brush off my feelings, let them pretend I didn't matter. But now, they had to confront it. Minutes passed. Then my phone buzzed violently, a dozen missed calls, messages coming in rapid succession. Vanessa, Margaret, Eric, even Richard, the man who barely spoke to me unless it was to make a passive-aggressive comment, was now demanding that I answer my phone. They were panicking because, for the first time, they weren't the ones in control. I didn't pick up. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and sat down at the counter. I wasn't in a rush. Let them sweat. Let them wonder. Let them feel what it was like to be ignored, dismissed, pushed aside. After all, they had done it to me for years. Another call came through. This time I let it ring out just long enough before answering. Vanessa's voice was tight, controlled, but there was an edge of unease. "Daniel, we need to talk." I took a slow sip of water. "Then talk." A pause. She wasn't used to this version of me. "Oh, can't just leave like that," she said, her voice softer now, almost pleading. "It's Christmas. My family is upset." I let out a low chuckle. "Po, they're upset? That's interesting, because I was humiliated in front of them, and not one of you cared until I walked out." Silence. Then the inevitable excuse. "It wasn't meant that way. You're overthinking it." There it was. The gaslighting, the dismissal, the refusal to acknowledge what had really happened. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice even. "Vanessa, I want you to hear me clearly. I am not some outsider to be pushed aside. I am your husband, your partner, and if you can't see me as your equal, maybe you shouldn't have married me." She sucked in a breath. For the first time, she had no response. And I wasn't waiting for one. The silence on the other end of the call stretched longer than I expected. For a moment, I wondered if Vanessa had hung up, if she had finally run out of excuses, of justifications, of empty reassurances. But then she let out a breath, shaky, uneven. "Daniel." Her voice was softer now, hesitant. Can we talk about this in person?" I leaned back against the kitchen counter, gripping my phone a little tighter. She wanted to talk now, after hours of pretending I didn't matter, after letting her family humiliate me like I was nothing. I let the silence linger, making her feel the weight of her request. Then I spoke, my voice steady but firm. "No, you don't get to control when we talk about this, Vanessa. You had your chance back at that dinner, when you could have stopped it from happening in the first place." A pause. "I didn't think it would bother you this much." I almost laughed. Bother me? I had swallowed so much over the years, bit my tongue, forced a smile, let them dismiss me time and time again. And now, when I finally reached my breaking point, she acted like I was the one making a scene. "I'll call you later," I said flatly, and ended the call before she could argue. I exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over my face. I had expected her to be defensive. I had expected her to make excuses. But hearing her say didn't think it would bother you this much, that cut deeper than I anticipated. Because what she really meant was, Tino didn't think you'd stand up for yourself. She had grown used to me enduring, to me being the husband who let things slide for the sake of peace. She had never truly considered that I might walk away. Well, now she knew. My phone buzzed again, not a call this time, a message from Vanessa. I hesitated, then unlocked my screen. "Daniel, please, let's not do this over text. I don't want to fight." I stared at the message for a long moment. She didn't want to fight. Of course she didn't. Because fighting meant she would have to acknowledge what she had done. Fighting meant she would have to admit that she had let them disrespect me. That she had been complicit in it. I scrolled through the other messages that had come in while we were on the phone. "Margaret, her mother, Daniel, be reasonable. We all love you. No one meant to offend you. Richard, her father, you're acting childish. If you want respect, you earn it. Walking away won't get you anywhere. Eric, her brother, dude, this is ridiculous. Just come back and stop making a big deal out of nothing." I clenched my jaw, staring at the words. Nothing. To them, this was nothing. They didn't see it. They didn't want to see it. I scrolled further, past the dismissive messages, until I reached the one I had sent earlier. the picture of the tiny table where they had expected me to sit, accompanied by my single-line caption, "Interesting choice of seating for your son-in-law. Hope the adults are enjoying their meal." I knew it had struck a nerve. Their frantic messages had only increased after I sent it. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about how they looked. That's when a new message popped up, this time from an unexpected number. Her aunt, the one who usually stayed quiet during these family gatherings. The one who never joined in when they mocked me but never defended me either. "Caroline, I saw your message. I just wanted to say I understand why you left. You deserved better tonight. I'm sorry no one said it at the time." I blinked, rereading her words, my fingers tightening around my phone. Someone got it. Someone, even if it wasn't Vanessa, had seen what happened and acknowledged it. And yet, it only made me angrier, because if Caroline saw it, then so did the rest of them. They just didn't care. I exhaled sharply and typed a reply. "Thank you for saying that, but it shouldn't have taken me leaving for someone to admit it." I sent it without hesitation. A minute later, she replied, "Oh, you're right. It shouldn't have. I hope Vanessa understands what she did before it's too late." I stared at her words, feeling a weight settle in my chest. Before it's too late. It already felt too late. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about tonight. This was about every time Vanessa had let them treat me like an outsider. Every time she had laughed along when they belittled my work. Every time she had stood silent when they dismissed my accomplishments. I had always told myself it didn't matter, that we were a team, that our marriage was stronger than their opinions. But was it? Or had I just been lying to myself all along? I sat there, the silence pressing in around me, until another buzz broke through my thoughts. Vanessa again. "I'm coming home. Can we talk?" I let out a slow breath. She was coming home, not because she had realized what she had done, not because she had defended me in that house, but because I had forced her to confront it. And for the first time, I didn't know if that was enough. I put my phone down and ran a hand over my face. She would be home soon, and when she walked through that door, we would have a conversation we should have had years ago. But this time, I wasn't going to let her brush it aside. This time, she was going to listen. And this time, I wasn't the one begging to be heard. I sat in the dimly lit living room, my mind racing as I waited. The silence of the house pressed in around me, thick and heavy, but I didn't turn on the TV or scroll through my phone. I just sat there, staring at the front door, waiting for Vanessa to walk through it. I had expected this moment for years, the inevitable confrontation. I had always known that one day I would snap, that one day I would stop swallowing my pride for the sake of keeping the peace, that one day she would finally see that her family's behavior wasn't just annoying, wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was degrading, it was humiliating. And the worst part? She had let it happen. The sound of tires crunching over gravel outside made me exhale slowly, bracing myself. I heard the car door slam, hurried footsteps up the porch steps, and then the jangle of keys. A moment later, the door swung open. Vanessa stepped inside, her expression tense, her coat still clutched tightly in her hands, as if she had driven here in a hurry. Her eyes locked onto mine immediately, scanning my face, searching for an opening, an easy way back in. I didn't give her one. She closed the door behind her and let out a slow breath. "Daniel." I leaned back against the couch, arms crossed. "Owned you're home earlier than I expected." Her lips parted, but she hesitated, as if weighing her words carefully, and I left as soon as I could. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Did you? Or did you wait until the embarrassment set in?" She flinched, just barely, but I saw it. "Daniel, please," she said softly, stepping closer. "Can we just talk?" I nodded once. "I'll say go ahead." She hesitated again, her grip on her coat tightening, but I didn't think it would turn into all of this. "And all of what?" I pressed. She exhaled sharply. "Tis. You leaving, the texts, the entire family blowing up my phone because they don't know what to do with this situation." I raised a brow. "So, let me get this straight. You're upset because of the situation, not because of what actually happened." She let out a frustrated sigh. "Oh no, that's not what I meant." "And say what you mean, Vanessa," I said evenly. Her jaw tightened, and I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, something she wasn't used to feeling in our arguments, uncertainty. Because for the first time, I wasn't bending, I wasn't smoothing things over, I wasn't letting her dictate how this conversation would go. "And I made a mistake," she finally admitted. "And I should have handled it differently." I tilted my head slightly. "Oh, what part of it was a mistake?" She frowned. "Daniel, don't do this." "No, I need you to say it," I pressed, "and because if you can't even acknowledge what the problem was, then we don't have anything to talk about." She swallowed, looking away for a moment before sighing. Oh, and I should have made sure you had a seat at the main table. I should have said something when I saw what my parents did. I studied her, waiting, but she sighed again, her frustration mounting. But it wasn't intentional, Daniel. My parents weren't trying to hurt you. They just what? I cut in, my voice sharp. She faltered, looking at me like she had never really seen me before. They just don't respect me, I finished for her. That's what you were going to say, wasn't it? Her silence was deafening. I leaned forward, my voice quieter now but no less firm. Well, you knew what they were doing. You knew the message they were sending, and you let it happen anyway. She swallowed hard, her face betraying her internal battle. They were calling me less than, I continued, when they were showing me and everyone else that I'm not really part of your family, that I never have been. And you just sat there and smiled like it was nothing. Her eyes glistened, her throat bobbing as she struggled to find words. Finally, she whispered,
"So I didn't think about it that way."
I laughed, shaking my head. That's the problem, Vanessa. You never do. She let out a shaky breath, finally dropping her coat onto the chair beside her. She looked exhausted, like the weight of the night had finally caught up with her. My family is in full damage control mode, she admitted. I leaned back, arms still crossed. Of course they are. They're not used to being called out. She nodded slowly. And they're worried about how this looks. I snorted. Oh, I'm sure they are. She bit her lip, hesitating again. But my mom wants to call you. My dad too. They think if they just explain, they can... And save face, I finished for her. She exhaled sharply, rubbing her forehead. Yes. I studied her, my next words careful but firm. What about you? She looked up, confused. What? I tilted my head. What do you think? Do you actually believe they did nothing wrong? Or are you just caught between them and me, trying to make this all go away? She opened her mouth, then closed it again, and there it was, the hesitation, the unwillingness to pick a side. I let the silence stretch between us before nodding. That's what I thought. Her brows furrowed. Daniel, that's not fair. Isn't it? I shot back. And I walked away tonight because I realized something. I realized that no matter how much I've tried, I will never be good enough for your family. And the worst part is, neither will you. She inhaled sharply, clearly not expecting that. I continued, my voice low but steady. You think they respect you? You think they actually see you? No. They see a daughter who married beneath her station, a wife who should have chosen better. And as long as you keep trying to make them happy, you'll never be happy yourself. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. That's not true. Tisn't it? I said again, my voice quieter now. She shook her head, her expression cracking. Daniel, I don't want to lose you. I exhaled, feeling the weight of her words. I don't want to lose you either, Vanessa, I admitted. But I also don't want to be in a marriage where I am constantly treated like an outsider, where I have to fight for basic respect, where my own wife doesn't stand up for me when it matters. She sniffed, wiping at her eyes. So what do we do? I took a slow breath. That's up to you. She looked up at me, desperate now. What do you mean? I met her gaze, unwavering. I've already made my decision. I'm not going back to that house. I'm not playing their games. If you want to stay in this marriage, you need to choose. You can't keep trying to please them while ignoring what that does to us. She stared at me, and for the first time I saw real fear in her eyes. Fear that she might actually lose me. Fear that, for the first time in our marriage, she was the one who had to fight to keep me. And the terrifying part, I didn't know if I wanted her to succeed. Vanessa sat across from me, her body tense, her fingers curled into her lap. The weight of my last words hung in the air between us, heavy, suffocating. I had never put her in this position before, never forced her to choose, and now that I had, I could see the fear in her eyes. Not just fear of losing me, but fear of finally having to face the truth she had avoided for so long. She wasn't just caught between me and her family. She had been complicit in this, and now she had to own it. She cleared her throat, her voice small. Daniel, this isn't what I wanted. I tilted my head slightly, studying her. No? Then what did you want, Vanessa? She exhaled, rubbing her hands together. And I wanted a night where things went smoothly, a night where we could just be together without drama. I let out a slow, humorless laugh. Smoothly, Vanessa? You let your family humiliate me, and you smiled through it. She flinched, but I wasn't done. I have spent years trying to make this marriage work, I continued, my voice steady but firm. And I have ignored the little digs, the dismissive looks, the way your father never actually acknowledges my accomplishments because they don't fit his definition of success. I let it go every time your mother treated me like a guest in my own home. I let it go when your brother spoke to me like I was some charity case. She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. But tonight wasn't little, I pressed. Tonight was deliberate. It was planned. And you, I pointed at her, my chest tightening, you let it happen. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't mean to hurt you. I leaned forward, my voice low. But you did. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as if trying to stop herself from breaking down. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to fight with my parents over something that could have just been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Bite, I finished, my voice sharp. She nodded hesitantly. I let out a slow breath, gripping the edge of the table to keep my frustration in check. Vanessa, this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a message, and you didn't just allow it. You reinforced it. She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time I saw it, understanding. The realization that this wasn't just about a dinner. This was about every time she had chosen them over me, every time she had let them belittle me because it was easier than standing up for me, every time she had expected me to just take it. She let out a shaky breath. I don't know how to fix this. I stared at her, my jaw tightening. That's the problem, Vanessa. You shouldn't have to fix this. You should have never let it happen in the first place. Silence stretched between us, heavy with everything we had never said out loud before. She wiped at her eyes and swallowed thickly. I love you. I exhaled sharply. That's not enough. Her face crumpled. So I can't be in a marriage where I feel like I'm fighting for basic respect, I continued, my voice quieter now, more raw. And I can't be with someone who is afraid to stand up for me. She let out a small broken laugh. Afraid, Daniel? Yes, afraid. I cut in, and 'cause the truth is, you still care more about what they think than how I feel. Oh, she shook her head. That's not true. And prove it. She froze. I leaned forward, my gaze locking onto hers. And prove it, Vanessa. Call your parents right now. Tell them what they did was wrong. Tell them you're not going to allow them to treat me like that anymore. She inhaled sharply. Daniel, and no excuses, I interrupted. If you really mean it, if you really see what they did is wrong, then prove it. She looked down at her lap, her breath uneven, the hesitation in her posture, the way she bit her lip, the way she thought about it instead of just doing it. That told me everything I needed to know. I sat back, my chest aching in a way I hadn't expected. She wasn't going to do it. She wasn't ready. Or maybe she never would be. Tears slipped down her cheeks, her fingers tightening into fists. I don't want to lose you. I let out a slow breath. Then you shouldn't have treated me like I was disposable. Her shoulders trembled. For a long moment we just sat there, staring at each other, both of us realizing that something between us had shifted, something had broken, and I didn't know if it could be put back together. She finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. What do you want me to do? I met her gaze, my own voice steady. I want you to decide who you're married to, me or them. She sucked in a breath. I stood, running a hand through my hair. I'm going to bed. She wiped at her face, sniffling. Don't Daniel, Saug, and CTD time to think, I said simply. So do you. Then, without another word, I walked down the hall, leaving her sitting there alone. Because for the first time in our marriage, I was the one making the decision. And I wasn't sure she would like my answer. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts circling like vultures over everything that had happened, over everything I had allowed to happen. The humiliation at that dinner, the years of being an outsider in my own marriage, the way Vanessa had hesitated when I asked her to take a stand. She wasn't ready. Maybe she never would be. The bedroom door never opened. I had expected Vanessa to come in, to try to talk, to try to plead her case, but she didn't. I heard her moving around in the living room long into the night, heard the occasional sniffle, but she never came to find me. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to say. When the first traces of morning light slipped through the blinds, I finally sat up, feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing against my bones. I ran a hand over my face and exhaled, knowing today wouldn't be any easier. Because if Vanessa had done nothing last night, that meant her family was still in damage control mode. And I wasn't going to make it easy for them. The moment I stepped out of the bedroom, my phone vibrated. I checked the screen. Richard, her father, since we need to talk, call me. I smirked. Of course now he wanted to talk. I ignored the message and walked toward the kitchen, only to find Vanessa already there, standing by the counter with a cup of coffee in her hands. She looked exhausted, her eyes red, her shoulders slumped. She glanced at me, hesitant. Good morning. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I poured myself a cup of coffee, taking my time, making her wait. She shifted uncomfortably. Oh, wait, Dad wants to talk to you. I took a slow sip of coffee. Yeah, I saw. She bit her lip. Are you going to call him? I set my cup down and met her gaze. Why? So he can tell me I embarrassed myself, that I should have just accepted what happened and moved on? Her lips parted, but she hesitated, because that's what was happening, wasn't it? I continued, they're not calling to apologize, they're calling to control the narrative, to make sure I don't make them look bad. Vanessa exhaled sharply, looking down. Daniel, Before she could finish, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Margaret, her mother, we need to move past this. Call Richard back. I let out a short, humorless laugh.
Wow, they don't even pretend, do they?
Vanessa looked at me, uncertain. Oh no, they don't care how I feel, I said. They just want to make this go away. She swallowed, gripping her coffee cup tighter. They're not good at apologies. I scoffed. Well, no, Vanessa, they just don't do apologies. A tense silence stretched between us, then another buzz. Eric, her brother, dude, just pick up. It's not that deep, that was it. I set my coffee down and turned to face Vanessa fully. Do you see this? Do you finally see it? She looked at my phone, at the string of messages, her expression conflicted. And they're still acting like I'm the problem, I said, my voice calm but sharp. They're still trying to control the situation instead of actually taking responsibility. And you, I pointed at her, are still standing between us like a mediator instead of choosing a side. Her face crumpled. Daniel, I am choosing. Show me, I interrupted. Because right now all I see is someone who wants to smooth things over instead of actually facing the truth. She inhaled shakily, staring down at her coffee like it held all the answers. What do you want me to do? I grabbed my phone and held it out to her. You want to prove that you choose me? That you actually see what's wrong? Then text them back yourself. Her head snapped up. What? I kept my hand extended. Why, tell them the truth. Tell them they were wrong, that I was disrespected, that you're not going to let it happen again. She hesitated again. That was all the answer I needed. I exhaled slowly and pulled my phone back. That's what I thought. Her eyes filled with tears. Daniel. I held up a hand. Don't. Just don't. She wiped at her face, frustration bleeding into her expression. You don't understand. Oh no, I cut in. So I do understand. I understand that after everything you still can't bring yourself to stand up to them. I understand that you care more about keeping the peace than you do about standing by your husband. Her hands trembled around her coffee cup. Then finally she whispered, if I do this, they'll never forgive me. I let her words settle between us, and then I nodded. Now you get it. Her breath hitched. They've never really forgiven you for marrying me, have they? I asked quietly. And they never will. She let out a shaky breath, her shoulders slumping. I spent years thinking I was the one who didn't belong, I said. But the truth is, you don't either. Not really. Because the moment you stop playing by their rules, you'll be just as disposable as me. Tears slipped down her cheeks. That's not fair. Tisn't it? I murmured. She sniffled, wiping at her face, her hands shaking. Said I don't know what to do. I studied her for a long moment. Then I reached into my pocket, pulled out my phone, and started typing. She watched me, confused, until she heard the sound of a message being sent. Her own phone buzzed a second later. She looked at it hesitantly, then picked it up, her eyes scanning the screen. I'll make it easy for you, Vanessa. I'm leaving for a few days. You have time to decide where you stand. But when I come back, I need an answer, not an excuse. She sucked in a sharp breath. Daniel. I pocketed my phone, grabbed my keys from the counter, and walked to the door. She followed quickly, panic creeping into her voice. Wait, where are you going? I opened the door but paused, looking back at her one last time. Che gave you a choice last night, I said softly. You didn't take it. She stared at me, shaking her head. Oh, you can't just say can, I said. I stepped out onto the porch, the morning air cool against my skin. She stood frozen in the doorway, her entire world shifting beneath her. And I, for the first time in years, felt free. The engine hummed beneath my fingers as I gripped the steering wheel, but I didn't start driving. I just sat there, staring through the windshield, watching the early morning light stretch across the horizon. I wasn't leaving because I was running away. I was leaving because I needed to know if Vanessa would follow. I had spent years chasing after her love, after her acceptance, after her family's approval. And where had that gotten me? Sitting at a tiny table meant for children, while the people who were supposed to be my family barely acknowledged my existence. No more. I exhaled slowly and finally pulled out of the driveway, feeling a strange sense of relief settle over me. I didn't have a set destination, but I knew I needed space. Needed to be somewhere where the weight of last night's betrayal didn't press so heavily against my chest. I ended up at a small hotel just outside the city, the kind of place that didn't ask questions when a man checked in with nothing but a single bag and a tired expression. I paid for a few nights up front and let myself into the quiet room, the sound of the door clicking shut behind me feeling strangely final. Then I sat down on the edge of the bed, my phone still silent in my hand. I didn't text Vanessa. I didn't call. I had already said what needed to be said. Now it was up to her. Hours passed, the sun climbing higher in the sky, and still nothing. No messages, no missed calls. Maybe that was my answer. I leaned back against the pillows, staring at the ceiling. The logical part of me knew I was doing the right thing, that a marriage where I constantly had to fight for basic respect wasn't a marriage worth saving. But the other part, the part that still remembered the woman I fell in love with, that part was struggling. I didn't want to lose her, but I also didn't want to keep losing myself just to stay with her. By the time the sun had set, my phone finally buzzed. I let it ring once, twice, then I answered. Vanessa. She exhaled sharply as if she had been holding her breath. Daniel, where are you? I didn't answer. Did you think about what I said? She hesitated. Can we talk in person? I closed my eyes. Paul, that depends. Are you ready to give me an answer? Another pause, then, yes. I exhaled slowly. It's then meet me at the park by the lake tomorrow morning. No family, no distractions, just us. She agreed without hesitation, which surprised me. Maybe, just maybe, she had finally realized what was at stake. The next morning I arrived at the park early. The lake was calm, the water reflecting the early light, and I stood by the benches, waiting. I heard her before I saw her, the sound of hesitant footsteps on the gravel path. I turned, and there she was. Vanessa looked different. Not physically, she was still the same beautiful woman I had married, still the same person I had built a life with. But her face looked raw, uncertain, like she had spent the entire night wrestling with herself. She stopped a few feet away, clutching the strap of her purse. Oni really left. I nodded. Yeah, she swallowed. She swallowed. I didn't think you would. That's the problem, Vanessa, I said quietly. And you never thought I would. Her eyes glistened, but she held my gaze. I thought about everything you said, about how I've let my family treat you, about how I've handled things. I didn't speak. I let her say the words herself. She took a shaky breath. And she was wrong. Something in my chest tightened, but I stayed silent. She stepped closer. Inke should have stood up for you. I should have defended you the moment they treated you like you didn't belong. I should have realized that by staying quiet, I was choosing them over you. I studied her face carefully, looking for any sign of hesitation. I didn't see any. And I called my parents, she admitted. When I told them what they did was wrong, that I wouldn't tolerate it anymore, that if they want to be in our lives, they have to respect you. I blinked. That I hadn't expected. And? I asked. She let out a short, humorless laugh, and they were furious. My dad tried to say I was being dramatic. My mom cried. My brother told me I was making a big mistake. She looked up at me, but I didn't back down. A long silence stretched between us. She had done it. She had finally picked a side. But now the question was it enough? She must have seen the uncertainty in my expression because she took another step closer, her voice softer now. Daniel, I love you, and I know that's not enough. Not after everything, but I see you now. I see what I let happen, and I swear to you, it won't happen again. I studied her for a long moment, letting the weight of her words settle. Then I exhaled. I believe you. Her breath hitched. You do? I nodded slowly. But believing you isn't the same as forgetting. She swallowed hard. I know. No, I let out another slow breath, glancing out at the lake. I need time, Vanessa. I need to know that this isn't just a temporary change. That you're not just saying this because you're afraid of losing me. She nodded, her hands gripping her purse tighter. Whatever you need, I'll prove it to you. I turned back to her. And you need to understand something. I'm done being treated like an outsider, done pretending I'm okay with it. If you ever let them disrespect me again, if you ever make me feel like I don't belong, I will walk away. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't look away. I won't let that happen again. For the first time in years, I actually believed her. I reached for her hand, testing the waters, and she clutched mine tightly, like she was afraid to let go. Maybe we weren't past this yet. Maybe it would take time. But for the first time in our marriage, I felt like we actually had a chance. Because now, Vanessa wasn't just standing next to me. She was finally standing with me. Vanessa's fingers tightened around mine, as if she thought I might disappear if she let go. There was a desperation in her grip, a silent plea wrapped around her trembling touch. But desperation wasn't enough. Not anymore. I looked down at our hands, at the years we had built together. The love that had once been effortless, now hanging in the balance of a single choice, a choice she had finally made. She had stood up to her family. She had called them out, but was it because she had changed, or because she was afraid of losing me? That was the question. She wiped at her face, exhaling shakily. "Daniel, I don't want us to end like this." I watched her, studying her face, the worry creased into her forehead, the raw vulnerability in her eyes. This wasn't the polished, composed woman I had married. This was someone realizing, for the first time, that love wasn't enough if respect wasn't there. "Neither do I said finally. Her breath hitched, as if she had been bracing for something worse. I let go of her hand, not as a rejection but as a statement. "Oh, but I need time." Her face fell. "Time?" I nodded, keeping my voice steady. "Saib, I believe you meant everything you said. I believe you want to change. But I also know that change doesn't happen overnight." I looked away, staring at the lake, my thoughts pulling me back to all the nights I had convinced myself that things would get better, only for them to get worse. She swallowed hard, wiping her face. "So, what does that mean for us?" I turned back to her. "It means I'm not coming home right away." She flinched, her shoulders tensing. I exhaled slowly. "So, I don't want to make a decision based on emotions. I need space to figure out if I can trust this change, if I can trust you not to let it happen again." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't argue, and that, more than anything, told me she knew this was the only way forward. "So long. How long?" she whispered. I shook my head. "I don't know. A few weeks, maybe more." She nodded slowly, as if forcing herself to accept it. "And if you decide you can't forgive me?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Then I won't come back." Her whole body tensed. "Vanessa," I said gently, stepping closer, "this isn't about punishing you. It's about making sure we don't end up back here again. Because if I come home before I'm ready, before I know for sure that I can trust you to stand by me, then this will keep happening. And I can't live like that anymore." She let out a shaky breath, nodding. "Sure, I understand." A silence stretched between us, heavy and uncertain. She reached for my hand again, and this time, I let her. "When you come back," she said softly, "I want you to know that I'll be the wife you deserve." I swallowed past the tightness in my throat. "I hope so." Her fingers brushed over mine one last time before she slowly let go, stepping back. "I love you, Daniel." I nodded. "I love you too." But love wasn't the problem. Respect was. And now, only time would tell if she had truly learned that. I watched as she turned, walking back toward her car, her posture uncertain, her steps slower than usual, like she wasn't sure if she was walking toward the future or away from it. I didn't know either. All I knew was that, for the first time in years, I wasn't the one chasing after her. I was finally standing still. And this time she had to be the one to come back to me.